Okay, our guest speaker just arrived. Hayk, welcome. We're doing a space to answer your question, MJ, on Armenia and the wars it's been going through and the survival of Armenia. Hey,
Yeah,
Hayk,
good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening.
good morning and good evening to you. Thank you so much for staying up to do
Yeah,
this.
thank you.
How are you doing?
Good, good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
Oh, yeah, super well.
Great, great. Yeah, it's good to be on again. I enjoyed the last one, so why not go another round? I hope everyone is doing well.
Howdy, sir. It's a pleasure. Any friend of Claudia is definitely a friend of mine. If you'd like to, real quick, just give an introduction to who you are to everybody else that may not know you.
Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure to be on, and it's good to talk to you again as well. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much introduced myself the last time, the previous time, but obviously there's going to be new people, so I'll do a short recap. I'm a U.S. born citizen. I was born and raised in the United States in California. I went to school there. I got my master's degree in 2015 in physics. I moved to Armenia in 2016 after the April War that happened in Armenia, the 4-day April War. And yeah, I joined the army here to get some experience. I served as a contract soldier for almost a year. And then I got out, and then I enlisted voluntarily in the war that happened in 2020, the 44-day war. I served it from beginning to end. And yeah, basically, and after that, a year later, I created the movement called Hosang. That's pretty much, I believe, the only nationalist political movement in Armenia. And I've been leading it ever since. It's a grassroots movement. And yeah, it's been one hell of a journey. And throughout these years, I've studied a lot. I've self-educated myself, and yeah, and just I think there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of truth to be told that not many people are doing it. So it's up to people like us to take on that responsibility. And yeah, today is also the fourth anniversary of the armistice that happened in that 44-day war. I call it the 44-day conspiratorial war because it wasn't even a true war. It was like a staged movie. I'll get into more detail later, but basically on November 9th of 2020, the agreement between Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. It was a pretty much stab in the back for the Armenian armed forces. That led to the events that happened last year of September 2023, when all of Armenia, I mean, excuse me, all of Artsakh was depopulated of Armenians. Now it's all completely 100% in Azeri control, unfortunately. So yeah, basically it's a lot of injustice took place, a lot of treason took place, and I just think a lot of people need to know about it. Not a lot of Europeans, not a lot of white people know about this war, and I think it's important because it's indirectly related to what's going on in Europe. It's tied together, whether we like it or not, because Armenia has always been the gateway to Europe. Many people think it's Greece. Much love to my Greek compatriots, but I believe Armenia is the true gate to Europe, to to the white world, as you can say. So, what's going on over here? It pertains to everyone. It relates to all European nations, and I think they should know what's going on at least. It's pretty much it's not covered a lot in the media. Um, even what happened with the depopulation of Armenians. Prior to that, it was blockaded. The media never said anything. Very, very rarely did they even raise that question. But then it started saying everything about it right after it got depopulated. So I feel like there's another conspiracy there with the media because Zionist forces were involved in this conspiracy because Israel is one of the main allies of Azerbaijan and has been supporting them and financing them and arming them ever since, I guess, the 90s, we can say. So, yeah, pretty much going off on a tangent, but um, I think, yeah, a lot of people need to know about this. And I think a lot of people will ask questions and they probably are curious. That's why we decided to name this, podcast or this space, Armenia's War for Survival in the gates of Europe. So if there's any questions, I mean, I could go ahead and ask, but I mean, I could go ahead and answer, but I don't know if,
Yeah, I got quite a few questions for you.
yeah, sure.
And to the other people that came up, I'd appreciate if you just kind of lay back for a little bit. Um, so you said you're nationalist. You said you're trying to start um, a party, or I'm guessing with an agenda of um, leading your nation. Um, would you care to elaborate on what exactly you hope to achieve as far as, what kind of system you would like to install? Are we talking national socialism? Are we talking leaning in that direction? Are we talking you and others like you of your people with the a nationalist democracy? What kind of system are you working towards or envisioning to help people understand?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Good question. I mean, well, I started the movement after the war, after I came back from the war a year later, because I noticed that the problem wasn't really a military problem. We didn't lose the war because uh, we weren't fighting or because we had fewer. I mean, we did have fewer arms or whatever arms, whatever weapons we did have was, I think, more than enough to defend Artsakh, at least to defend so-called Nagorno-Karabakh in Turkish. So I understood that whatever happened was it was a bad backstab by the politicians. And um, prior to the war that happened in 2020 and 2018, the so-called Velvet Revolution took place in Armenia, which overthrew the previous government and installed this puppet trader. I mean, not to say that the other ones weren't also puppet traders as well, which then led to the treason that happened in 2020. Again, Armenian history is kind of complicated. It's hard. Usually, people think of just East and West, but over here, since it's like at the crossroads of everything, a lot of interests, collide right at this crossroads of like civilization. So it's kind of for me to really explain everything in detail. It's going to take it's going to take a long time. But anyways, I understand that the problem is political, so we have to uh, basically, I had to start a nationalist movement from the ground up because I didn't see anything like that. Armenia is a post-Soviet state, and unfortunately, all the nationalists were wiped out in the 90s. That's another story in itself, but they were wiped out in the 90s, and whatever was left was just nothing but neo-Bolsheviks and liberals that just ruled the country right now. And I didn't see any nationalist party or movement or anything when I came to Armenia in 2016. I was searching for something like that, so I didn't find anything. So I decided to start it myself, and it's based on the ideas of Gharagi Nezhda, our hero, who lived 100 years ago, and he also um, was fighting for Armenia's survival in the region of Sunik, which is next to Artsakh, next to Nagorno-Karabakh. He was fighting against the Red Army. I could go later on and I could explain briefly what was going on back then, 100 years ago. It's just interesting how history is kind of repeating itself. There's a lot of similarities to what's happening in Armenia now to what was happening 100 years ago. But anyways, he's our pretty much, I guess you could say, the Führer of the Armenian nation. He he laid the groundwork for the ideology, and he wasn't just like a commander. He was a statesman. He was a leader all around, and he created that ideology called Tsagakronism, which is basically, I guess you can't say, an Armenian version of National Socialism, even though there weren't any direct connection or anything. But they were created like at the same time, even though they had no connection with each other. Both were created in 1920, right? So that's an interesting coincidence in itself. But yeah, our whole movement is based on those ideas of Telachronism, and we were trying to revive that ideology, to revive that movement in the 21st century, bring it back to life. And because that's the only way that we'll be able to create a national state that will make sure that November 9th, 2020 never repeats itself in Armenian history. So that's what we're all about. Yeah, of course. I mean, we look up to the nationalist movements of the previous century, National Socialism, without a doubt. But we don't blindly copy any movement. We're trying to do something uniquely our own. We don't even blindly copy the teachings of our hero Najda. You know, we're also trying to add to it. We're trying to make it better. We're trying to improve it. And yeah, because again, people think right now in Armenia, people think, oh, the war is over. We're gonna live peacefully now. Now they're talking about signing some um, ridiculous peace agreement, as if that's gonna bring some peace, and it's gonna be something that's gonna humiliate us even further. It's gonna pretty much be the Versailles of Armenia. The Azerbaijan is gonna impose whatever it wants on us. It's going to tell us to not have an army anymore. It's going to tell us to open the borders with Turkey, to forget about the genocide, etc. So to prevent all that from happening, from losing our, statehood completely, a movement like ours definitely needs to come to power in this decade or in the beginning of the next one, at least. So that's what we're working on. Well, it's been, you know, 3 years almost that this movement I started, and we're slowly growing. A lot of youth. It's attracting a lot of youth, and there's a lot of work to be done though. And we're trying to look for more means of financing so we could grow even bigger. But we know that a big calamity is on its way. Whether it's going to be economic or another military threat, we just have to be ready to take advantage of that situation in a positive way to lead the people in the right direction when that time of catastrophe comes.
All right, real quick, do you want to let everybody know where they could donate if they so choose? And second part, are you living in Armenia now or are you living abroad?
Uh, yeah, the donation part, they could go to the website hosang.net, and there's a donation. It's in Armenian and in English. They could switch to English, and they could, um, go to the donation page. There's a way they could donate, or they can message me directly, and I could tell them it's not a problem. But again, I want them to actually agree with our movement, what we're all about, before they just, blindly decide to donate. But we appreciate even the smallest amount of donation. And yeah, I live in Armenia. I've been living in Armenia since 2016. I only went back once 2 years ago to the US. For like 6 weeks just to visit friends and family, and I haven't been back since. I don't care to go anymore either, so I'm pretty much like 100% focused on this. Nothing really, I don't really care about anything else, to be honest with you. Like, to me, I'm just focused on growing the movement, and because again, it's connected to Armenia's war for survival. It is a war for survival, even though a lot of people think they're living and peacefully right now, but it's gonna end. This illusion is gonna shatter soon. So, um, yeah, I just wanted to, let people know. I mean, a lot of Europeans, they don't know about it, or they might have just heard about what's going on here, but they don't know like the full detail. Too many people are just focused on Ukraine or like Gaza or I don't know, Taiwan or something, but not a lot of people know what's going on here. So I think it's important.
How is how has your people been receiving your message? Have you found interest when you're able to, you know, get time or get them to take time to listen? Do you have a committee? Is this something that it's very top down type thing where you're just leading the way and accumulating followers? And how is it? I know in America there's a few pockets of Armenian population. Um, is are you getting interest, support, or is it resonating within the American Armenian community?
Well, yeah, that's a good question again. Our message, well, as I said before, Armenia is a post-Soviet country, so pretty much the older crowd, anyone pretty much over, I guess, 40, especially over 50, even though they agree with like a lot of the nationalist message that we have, a lot of them think that our approach to it is too Nazi or too fascist or things like that. You know, because they haven't really seen any nationalism, and whatever they have seen, they've always associated with something evil. Again, it's all just the Soviet Jew propaganda. That's all they've seen. That's what they've been brainwashed with. So I really can't blame them. We did our first rally at the beginning of this year, and it went viral. It was like an international scandal. A lot of people. We got a lot of support. We got a lot of support mainly from the youth, even from like the older crowd, some of them too. But uh, the media tried to defame us. They tried to, turn us into like hooligans, as if we're just like some group of disorganized lunatics or whatever. But so yeah, I mean the media here is definitely against that. But we rebranded our image a bit so we don't look quote unquote Nazi, even though we never considered ourselves Nazi or like fascist or anything. That's how the media likes to twist things, spin things around. So yeah, we rebranded it, and so now we have a better image, an image that resonates more with our people, and the diaspora Armenians, yeah, the ones in America, we have supporters there. We have members in California, mostly there in California. The Armenians there. We have supporters from Europe. We even have non-Armenians supporting us and showing a lot of love. So we appreciate that as well. Um, so yeah, it's a mixed bag, but as short answer is basically most of the youth they agree with it. They agree with our message. They support us. But again, a lot of them are too timid. They don't want to be involved. They might just stay on the sidelines and just be spectators. And it's only during times of big calamity where they actually want to get out there and do something. Whenever it's a relative peace like it is now, they don't want to get involved. They don't want to be participants. They rather just sit and watch. It's like a spectator sport for them. And it's unfortunate. I think it's like that with everyone. It's like that with every nation. I think all nationalists complain about that. So it's not just us that's facing that problem. And our structure, yeah, it's basically a hierarchy. There's a leader with like a chief secretary, all that. But right now we're still in like the beginning phase. It's not everything is not so 100% solid yet, but we're slowly forming. We're slowly getting more organized. We're getting more support again. It all takes time. I mean, these things don't happen overnight. I mean, just like it's like trying to start a business. Like I haven't heard of anyone creating a successful business in a matter of 2 years. It takes at least like 5 years. So I think the same is true for political movements. Basically, I'm a political entrepreneur, as you could say. Uh, so if it's something that we believe in, it's something that we know is true. If we believe we're on the right path, then at the end of the day, it's going to work out. It's just a matter of uh, when and not if. That's what I believe. So there's not a committee yet, but we do meetings. We do weekly meetings. sometimes bi-monthly meetings. We've done like 3 rallies so far. We're trying to, you know, do open conferences, and we want to become a party next year, political party, so we could participate in the elections in 2026. Even though we know we're not going to have a chance at all at getting a majority, but we're just going to use that platform as an opportunity to become more famous, get more recognition, because the media here doesn't cover us. They act like we don't exist, and and over here again, just people are just too primitive. Same thing, I guess you could say with in America. It's either, well, in America it's Republican or Democrat. Over here, it's either you're, uh, against the government or with the government, and very little in between. And it's very primitive. They don't have, there's no movement with a solid ideology, with a solid belief in its vision or things like that. They don't understand those types of concepts over here, especially the boomers. So we were trying to change all that. We're trying to inspire the youth, put them on that right path.
And I have a question, Ludwig. Really quick, guys, please retweet the space. And I have a question also, Hike John. Have you tried speaking with other nations if they have a national socialist or nationalistic group? For example, if with Ireland or with, I don't know, any other nation. Have you met with other leaders from other nations?
Before we have a non-Armenian member from Australia. He's a friend of ours. He found us online randomly. He actually came and lived in Armenia for a year. He's Scottish and Polish. He has no Armenian ancestry, but he's more Armenian than a lot of Armenians I've met. So he's a member, and the difference with our movement compared to all the other movements in Armenia, we were open to all Aryan people, all white people. Where it's not just like an Armenian thing. So if they're for our cause and they want to join, then and they have Aryan blood, then sure, they could sign up, no problem. That's not a issue. And I've talked to a lot of them online. I've talked to a lot of Italians, a lot of Germans. We actually created a separate chat for like a global Aryan union type of thing, and we have members from all different you know nations in that chat room. So we actually have one of the guys just working on that, where he just makes connections with different people, different white people all around the world. And yeah, so far we've been getting a lot of support from all our neighbors. Obviously, besides the like the Jews and like Turks, but mostly the Georgians for I don't know that supports us, and the Russians too. Basically, Eastern Europe, Ukrainians even support us. Yeah, basically, mostly support. That's the positive thing. But yeah, we want to create a global, like, Aryan world axis, and that's what I want to call it one day. I think that's what we need because this is turned into a global movement. Like Rockwell said, at this time the world. So that's what we got to do.
Just to clarify, so are you trying to implement National Socialism as it was traditionally done in Germany? Or are you creating your own hybrid version of that? Or as you spoke on, you said there is older nationalistic patriotic types, Armenia first. Are you trying to do that? Um, are
Uh,
you trying to do full-fledged National Socialism or a new Armenian hybrid version of that?
well, I think it's impossible in this 21st century to just go ahead and, copy exactly what was done. Even if you try to copy, it's never going to anyway. So I don't think there's even a point to do that. Like I said, we're trying to bring back the ideas of Tsarokronism, which again, if we study Tsarokronism and the ideas, is very similar to National Socialism. Uh, the ideas of race, the ideas of honor, courage, everything, all those attributes that National Socialism has. It's all taught in Nejda's Tzaragon ideology as well. So uh, we already have it. We already have our version of it. Just like well, as you could say, what Italians had fascism, right, or whatever. If the Belgians had Rexism and what have you. So we already have our own. We don't need to copy from a different nation. I mean, again, we take a lot of examples. We take what's the good, we discard what's not, and we add what's uniquely our own. That's our approach, and it's just going to be an Armenian nationalist state. That's what we want to have based on those ideas. And obviously, though, no matter what we do, obviously the media is going to always label us as a neo-Nazi or something like that. But my point is that we don't, again, like I said before, we don't blindly copy, and even because there's no point to do so. That it's not about copying. It's about uh, being on the same page. It's about being on the same path. There's only one truth. There's different ways to get to that truth, but there's only one truth. So uh, different nations. Have represented a different way. It's like Christianity. Every nation is different, right? Every nation has their own kind of different version of it. Split up throughout the centuries. It's not just like one Christian church and that's it. There's many different kinds, and a lot of times it's based on the nationality. So even with those religions, it's not the same. The same thing with this. It can't be one size fits all for all nations. But what matters is that we're on that same platform and we're fighting the same cause against the same global enemy. And yeah, and right now Armenia, it's actually, you know, fighting a physical war too. I don't know too many white nations that are actually fighting like a real like war. I mean, besides the Russian-Ukraine war, um, but in this part of the region right here, I don't think there's another nation that's doing that. It's a lot of white organizations they're fighting against only like an internal threat, immigration and all those other problems. We're facing mostly an external threat. Of course, no, definitely an internal threat as well as both at the same time. So that's what's kind of unique about our situation. And again, what's happening now, it's very connected to what happened 100 years ago. I could get into detail about that if I don't know if you guys are curious to know. I mean,
No, I just
you
wanted
guys,
clarification because, I'm a National Socialist. I'm German, and that's fine that, you're not really going down that path. As you said, you Armenians have your own form of patriotic, nationalistic type ideology. Um, my recommendation to you: stay away from anything National Socialist. And I tell this to everybody. I tell this to Americans. If your intent is not to go full-fledged National Socialism as it stands, any group would be silly to even touch that, to even allow any kind of tying together of that. Because as you pointed out, you get demonized so much. You mentioned Rockwell. You should never mention his name ever again. Besides, maybe it's just when you're sitting in your living room with a small circle. Because just mentioning that name right away, the Jews are like, "See, white supremacist, neo-Nazi," and you're not trying to do what Rockwell did. You might appreciate or him being supposedly a patriot. Um, so this is just a suggestion. Take it for what it's worth. For you and your group, I mean, I'm very supportive of it. I think you should be very patriotic. Cultural pride, historical pride. You got many great heroes, and you've had great societies. And I would go down that path, in my opinion. I wouldn't talk about Jews. I wouldn't talk about Holodomor. I wouldn't talk about Holocaust. I wouldn't talk about Hitler. I wouldn't talk about Rockwell. I wouldn't get within a million miles of any of those topics. Because as soon as you even breathe about it, they will label you that. And as you pointed out, especially with your people living under the Ottoman rule and then the Soviet rule, Your people are as um, 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 educated as the vast majority of the world, Nazi bad. And there's many of your people where I think a healthy, patriotic type, cultural pride type messaging will really resonate. But until they hear the word swastika, Hitler, Rockwell, neo-Nazi, and then they just walk away. Or then you're sitting there trying to enlighten your people that Hitler did nothing wrong. And for your people, especially for this time, it's irrelevant. Hitler's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with nothing. It's only an anchor. It's only an albatross at this point for what it seems to me what you're trying to accomplish. As a German, I always appreciate when people speak true to history. But if you're trying to resonate a message with your people first and foremost, I would really stay away from all of that. And you're not even trying to implement National Socialism, which is fine. As you said, your people got your own way, and your people have had many great civilizations or societies. I encourage to go that path. And, as a suggestion, I would never, ever have the discussion. Don't. I mean, somebody says, "What do you think of Hitler?" I don't. I'm worried about my Armenian people today. That was a million years ago. I don't think about Hitler. I think about the suffering of my people today, the plight of my people today. So that would be my suggestion to you, because I see lots of people, good people, trying to accomplish stuff, and then they get muddled down and arguing about the Holocaust, which will usually not even have anything to do with their people or even what they're trying to accomplish. And then it's so counterproductive in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, I don't bring up Hitler or whatever in my speeches or anything like that. If I'm not asked about it, if I'm not like evaluating history or like analyzing history, or if I'm not asked about it, I don't bring it up. It's not like something I bring up just for the hell of it. If someone asks me about what I think about World War II, I'm not gonna sit there and lie. For example, I'm gonna say the truth, but it's not on the you know, priority of the topics we're discussing right now. That's why I said we don't blindly copy those movements or that imagery. But again, if someone asks me about World War II, about those things, it's big topics. It's not a small topic. It's a topic that often discussed. The documentaries are made on World War II every like day almost. So it's hard to not give your 2 cents on what happened. So that's if someone asks me, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna uh, you know say something that I don't believe in. So in that regard, I'm gonna speak the truth. I don't care what people think. But the youth, like I said, the youth, they're all for it. Most of the youth, I haven't come across the young people that are against it over here, even though it's a post-Soviet state. But yeah, we're just sticking to our own ideology, which again has a lot of similarities. Obviously, it's gonna have differences too. But if people want to know what I really believe, what's our stance on different historical events, then we're gonna speak the truth. And regarding the Holocaust, I mean, um, I mean, again, it's a big topic too. So and it's important for us. It's important for people to know that it's a hoax. It's a criminal lie because they once they understand that, then they understand that the type of lies that our enemies can create. The type of nonsense that they could generate with the control of the mass media. So it's important for them to know these things because it helps us to understand who our enemies are. And as for what relates to Rockwell, I mean, Rockwell just an inspiration to follow. He's a great man. He was a great leader, very noble man, and that's why in that regard we should look up to people like that, not Martin Luther King or Mandela or Malcolm X or whatever. People, it's funny how our people, a lot of people they know, but those they know those people, they don't know Rockwell or they don't know William Pierce in America. I grew up in America. No one talked about them, but they talked about Rosa Parks or some other like insignificant people who they considered heroes, which is ridiculous. So yeah, I appreciate the suggestion and tips, but I think we're on we're on the right path. Yeah, the first we started with a pretty radical image. I'm not gonna lie, but we needed to do that. I mean, let's be honest. We needed to do that because the media was uncovering us. Once we, did the salute in front of the statue with the eternity flag, our previous flag was red, black, and white, and all of a sudden we got complete media coverage, even though it was, uh, different negative coverage. It doesn't matter though. We still got coverage, and a lot of people found out about us that rally that we did. And a lot of people became members after they saw that. So um, it's something that we needed to do to get that attention. But now, we thought for the long term goal, it's better if we do take one step back so we could take two steps forward. So that's what we're working on.
Well, I'm glad you're changing up your approach, and if you don't mind me, and I say this with all due respect, and I say this to try to help others, because I see others with that same exact logic. First, Rockwell, I'm gonna have to do a space on him. That's a whole different story. Um, a lot of people, the mainstream media, who cares? There's teenage girls with doing cat videos that gets more views than all the mainstream media put together. That's the old paradigm. Put your energies towards social media and the internet. Facebook, I imagine because there'd be a lot in your community that's probably on Facebook in America and abroad. um, make your presence known through the internet and try to, you said there's some youth that are, interested and try to get them weaponized into a clique where they have a purpose, and even if it's 10 hours a week, they work collectively to brainstorm and to make your presence known on as many as platforms, doing clips, doing, you said you got a website, so doing clips and pushing everybody towards your website. Once again, I can't stress this enough. And then a lot of groups will do that. They're like, well, we do the Zeke House salute so the news media will write about us. Um, that's just, it's counterproductive in my opinion.
It's a
Because yeah,
double-edged sword.
yeah, it's counterproductive. You get labeled, you're tied into it. Many of your own people, as you openly admit, even my own people, even to this day, I started Zeke Island in Germany. A large portion of the Germans are going to roll their eyes and maybe even spit on me, where I'm trying to liberate my people. It would be counterproductive. And nobody's asking you to lie when somebody says, "Oh, well, what's your opinion about the Holocaust?" Say, "Well, that's a whole different topic." But my opinion on the Armenian genocide is this. Any questions they have about anything other than your people, your history, you just direct it right back to your people, your history. You should be a broken record and just nobody's asking you to lie. You don't have to talk about the Holocaust. You don't have to talk about Hitler. You don't have to talk about the slave trade. Any question anybody asks you outside of what you're doing, which is your people. You just direct it right back to that. They say, what do you think of the Holocaust? Say, well, that's a whole different topic, and I really don't have an opinion on that at this point in time. But I can tell you about the Armenian genocide, all four of them. And then, rattle on about that, That's my suggestion to you, sir. You should be Armenian, only Armenian, and that's that. Don't worry about all the rest. And
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
agree. I mean, I just think, I mean, there's a harm to do both because, again, like I said, we're trying to be like a global movement. So we got a lot of, Europeans supporting us because we speak the truth on those issues as well. If we didn't, if we just stuck to only Armenian, then we would only get Armenian supporting us. But again, we have that support from different Europeans because we're speaking the truth. We're speaking about the issues that relate to all white people. Again, at the end of the day, like feminism or multiculturalism or low birth rates and all those other problems, it's dangerous facing all white nations, not just Armenia or not just Germany. It's just we're all facing those same problems.
Well,
So
I understand
again,
that, and yeah, it is good to speak on global issues, but don't fight other people's fights. You got your hands full. I mean, your people are
yeah,
hungry.
of course.
So, yeah, you could talk about
And that's what I
patriotism.
do. But
You talk about
people tell me. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. But the people when they say about like, oh, how can you do this? Or for example, whenever the Israeli counselor here was speaking out against our rally, oh, neo-Nazi rally. Oh, why are they letting Why is the government letting this group do a Nazi rally? I just turned it back on them. I go like, why is your government keep denying the Armenian genocide? Why does it keep arming and financing Azerbaijan? Why does it have busts of Ataturk in Israel? So I just turned it back on them, and I even wrote all those things under that person's under that Israeli counselor's Twitter, and he never responded back. So yeah, of course we have to use their tactics against them. So that's what I did, and every time I bring up those you know uh, points, they never answer it. They just get stuck because they know that they're being hypocritical and they can't answer it, and that there's nothing they can say.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and that's a healthier approach, taking that direction. To any of the listeners, please just wait. This is supposed to be a one-on-one interview. Duchess saw fit to bring everybody up. I wasn't going to bring people up until later. We are going to be opening up the panel to Q&A, and all questions are directed towards the guest speaker. Nothing else is being discussed besides Armenia and what the guest speaker is working towards. And I don't care about your feelings or your emotions or your little or whose ever other causes. Now, to you, like, see, like Duchess enlightened me about Kurt, and Duchess correct me, Kirk Kerkorian. Is that correct, Duchess?
Again, sorry, my voice is
Kirk
going.
Kerkorian, yeah.
Yeah, fuck Rockwell. That's a name that should be coming out of your mouth, a lot. A great Armenian. He accomplished so much on his own merit, and he did so much for his people. I'm sure Duchess had met him. Um, and she enlightened me to him. See, I would never have known about him. I know about the Armenian history. I usually research the big picture, not the little snapshots, as much. But she enlightened me about him. That's a guy to emulate. That's a guy and I'm sure most of your people know of him, but that's a guy to really, say, hey, we're doing this in his name and others like him, and we're of this vein, and that'd be my recommendation. Duchess,
I
did
mean, to
you?
each their own. I mean, to each their own. But I mean, he was a good businessman. He was a good man. I have nothing to obviously know, but nothing bad to say about him. But he's not someone that personally inspires me. Like I said, Najda inspires me. Our freedom fighters of the 20th century are heroes of the last Artsakh, so-called Nagorno-Karabakh war in the 90s. Those are the people we bring up. Those are the names that really inspire us because those need right now. Yeah, it's good to have. Obviously, it's good to have great, philanthropists or great businessmen in our nation. But right now, at this critical point where we're fighting a war for the survival of our statehood, for the survival of our fatherland, we need to have that fighting spirit. And I feel like our people have lost that or it's temporarily dormant. That's what we want to wake up and we have to bring up those fighters as an example. And Rockwell was a fighter. I mean, That's why. If I'm gonna bring up
Well,
any
just real
foreigner
quick,
as an example, I'm gonna bring up someone like that.
real quick. I've done a deep dive on Rockwell. He was a controlled agent. Rockwell was a sh.
I don't.
So Rockwell's not a good person to speak about. I'm just being honest with you. I like you, and I'll be doing broadcasts on that, breaking it down. But yeah, there's many.
That'll be interesting to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's many. And Rockwell wasn't even a national socialist. And he did the same thing, and he even said the same thing. I seen the interview myself, where they asked him about it, because he's a constitutionalist and he's an American supremacist and he was a white supremacist. He- well, yeah, that's that person. I'm surprised that person waited so long. Um, so, and he was asked, and he even, they asked him point blank. They're like, "What, do you want to implement National Socialism in America?" And he's like, "Hell no." He's like, "I only did this because I wanted to get play in the media." He goes, "And I knew the media would give me play." Now, see, he followed that same train of thought. Be outrageous, catch people's attention, and then this way you could get their ear, and then you could build. He never was able to accomplish anything in over a decade, almost 2 decades, of devoting his whole life to it, supposedly. And he got a couple hundred people at best. But he wasn't even a national socialist. Um, it was even if he wasn't a paid, controlled opposition. Um, I see many little groups trying to do this, and they say, well, it gets us written about by the Jews. It's counterproductive, and
Well, that's a different topic about Rockwell. I mean, well, we might have to agree to disagree right now, but I'll be curious to know later on what you think about it. But yeah, that's a whole different topic. I mean, I don't want us to go too off on the tangent right now, you know.
all right, let's do some Q&A. JT, how you doing, sir? And I appreciate everybody being patient. JT, any questions for our guest? All right, JT's busy.
I just hope the questions for that relate to like what's going on with Armenia right now, like well, the struggle is facing with Azerbaijan and all that, and how it relates to Europe. If those questions could relate to all that, that'll be good.
I think JT's beating his dog right now. Ron, go right ahead.
Personally, I think Donald Trump might actually be able to help save Armenia to a certain extent, even though I don't actually think he really cares about Armenia.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's I completely disagree. First of all, I don't care who America's president is. I don't care if it's Santa Claus. No one's gonna come save us. At best, they're just gonna help us with weapons to fight our own fight. But yeah, no one's gonna come fight our fight for us. We're gonna have to do it ourselves. If we wanna you know, remain on this earth and have our own country, we're gonna have to fight a bloody fight. And all the other Armenians or all the other people who say otherwise are either ignorant or liars, and they don't know anything about history. So, and especially Trump. I mean, Trump is a complete Zionist. I mean, during, I mean, during his last presidency, that's when we lost the war. I mean, that's when we were backstabbed, more accurately. And he didn't do anything about it. Why? Because I'm sure he probably got a call from the Zionists and saying, "Oh, don't, get involved," because obviously, Israel, the Zionists had a big interest in this war. Like I said, they financed Azerbaijan, they armed Azerbaijan, they still do, and that's one of the reasons why America doesn't get involved. It wanted Azerbaijan to win. Also, a lot of billionaires in the West and in Russia, they all have a lot of interests with the Baku oil. That's a whole story in itself. But yeah, again, just we need to stop with that. That's what's leading us to our destruction. No one's gonna come save us. We got to get out of that false reality. We need to be like men and take up arms. when the time comes, but we need to first get on the right political platform. We need to have that right mindset first and foremost before we fight the physical fight. So, that's what I'm trying to do with this movement. But yeah, only put hope within your own nation. That relates to every nation, not just the Armenians.
Yeah, I would have to second that. And I was just looking that I know of. There's at least four Armenians in here. Who knew that I would resonate with Armenian peoples, my fellow Armenians? Hopefully, I could get some. Hopefully, I could get some honorary Armenian citizenship kick in here. Um,
Definitely. Now, you'll have asylum here. You'll have asylum when we come to power and something happens there. You'll have some asylum. Don't
I
worry.
appreciate that. I'll keep that in my back pocket for if I ever got to get that off. JT, are you with us? Did you get done beating your dog?
Yeah, no, no, all good, Sir Ludwig. Sorry about that. Um, really quickly, first of all, it's always a pleasure, sir, to be speaking with a true fighter, a true warrior for his people. I have to second guess. I have to second your opinion. Armenia is definitely on its own, unfortunately, and sadly, it shouldn't be. In my view, as a Christian Palestinian. I see you as a brother from afar. The same people that have genocided your people three times. This is the third genocide your people are going through. Uh, are also killing our people. So in many ways, I see a lot of parallels. I did want to say that I do believe that there are three evil nations in the region. And I believe those three evil nations uh, to be kin, and that those nations that should not exist are Israel, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. These countries have been an absolute blight to humanity since their inception. And it is my prayer, my hope, my friend, that um, I always say free Armenia. Armenia should be free all the way to the Caspian Sea.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for that.
make Azerbaijan Armenian again.
Definitely. Yeah, they say that the enemy keeps saying right now in Azerbaijan they're spreading that propaganda that Armenia is so-called Western Azerbaijan. Today's Republic of Armenia. And these are the people that want to sign a peace treaty with us, a so-called peace treaty. But they're openly promoting the idea of Western Azerbaijan in Azerbaijan, and that's crazy. It's like the opposite is true. Armenia is in Western Azerbaijan.
Could
Azerbaijan is
could I ask
Eastern
a
Armenia.
could I ask a quick
That's the truth.
could I ask a quick follow up?
Yeah, of course.
So, what do you think of the this current puppet? I don't even want to call him the president, but he's just absolute disaster, and I just think he's so illegitimate. A man such as yourself would do a much better job.
Are you talking about so-called Nikol Pashinyan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been a pretty much traitor since like the 90s. He was a yellow journalist back in the 90s. He used to defame our, commanders during the Artsakh War. He used to write like dirty articles about them. Just basically a reprobate, man-child, degenerate, and he tried to come to power with Levon Petrosan, the first president of Armenia. Back in the 90s, he resigned. He tried to come back to power in 2008, and that's when Nikol Pashinyan tried to come to power with him, but it failed. It was like a little coup they tried. And then 10 years later, they do that so-called revolution, and that's when Nikol Pashinyan comes to power. And what's interesting about that revolution is that neither the West nor Russia condemned it. Usually, whenever a revolution like that happens, one side condemns it and one side praises it. At least that's what I've seen. I don't know. Maybe there's another exception I'm not aware of. That I don't know. But it was interesting that none of them condemned it. They all praised it, or they all basically were supportive of it. They wanted him to come to power because let's rewind a little bit. This whole Artsakh problem, this whole Nagorno-Karabakh problem, so-called Nagorno-Karabakh is Turkish. It means mountainous Karabakh. Karabakh means black park, I guess you could say. And the true word is Artsakh, the old Armenian ancient word for it. Anyways, it started in after the genocide, after the 1950 genocide, when we established our independence in 1918. Turkey was falling apart. If it wasn't for the Kemalists and the Bolsheviks supporting Kemal, Turkey would have completely disintegrated. And basically in 1920, whenever the Bolshevik state was already established, already for like 3 years, and then the Kemalists were doing their rebellion, they the Bolsheviks funded and armed the Kemalists, and they formed an alliance. And what a lot of people don't know, a lot of the media, even the Armenian like textbooks, they don't really say it like this, but it was a Armenian. I mean, sorry, it was a Turkish Russian alliance, a Kemalist Bolshevik alliance against Armenia. A war was started, and that's why I keep bringing that up, the example 100 years ago, because in 1920, on September, the war started against Armenia. It was a Turkish Russian invasion of Armenia, one from the west, which took over our region of Kars, so parts of western Armenia, and on the Sunnik region, that's where the Bolsheviks attacked. That's where Nejdet defended. Najda defended Sunik without even having like a legit army. He was just using volunteers. He was fighting like a partisan warfare against the Red Army. So it's the same thing with Pilsudski, the leader of the Polish, was doing in Poland when he fought the Polish-Russian War and he won. That's exactly what Najda was doing back in Sunik. What the Bolsheviks wanted to do, they wanted to get Artsakh and they wanted to get Sunik and Nakhichevan, all those territories, the southern part of Armenia. They Unfortunately they were successful on giving Artsakh and Nakhichevan to the enemy, to Azerbaijan. This is the Soviets. But if it wasn't for Najda, they would have done the same to Sunik. And it was because of his rebellion, it was because of his fight that right now Sunik is part of Armenia. And but basically, unfortunately, that 1920, that war that we lost, it took again, it's 2 months, a lot of crazy similarities. The war lasted 2 months. We lost, and in 1921, it was uh, it was called the Lenin Kemal Brotherhood Pact, where they decided how they're going to divide up Armenia, basically. And that's when they decided that, okay, Sunik isn't giving up, so I guess Sunik is going to remain part of Soviet Armenia, not Soviet Azerbaijan. But Artsakh was unfortunately implemented in Soviet um, Azerbaijan because of Stalin's interference. A lot of the Bolsheviks didn't even care, actually, that they were like, ah, whatever, screw it, let's just put it part of Soviet Armenia. Stalin called the last minute pretty much, and he said, no, no, put it under Soviet Azerbaijan. And because of that one, uh, choice, now we face this whole catastrophe that happened 100 years later. And then during the 90s, whenever the Soviet Union disintegrated, Armenians living in Artsakh, they wanted to, unite with Armenia. They didn't want to become part of the newly created Azerbaijan. Because again, Artsakh was never part of independent Azerbaijan. It was part of the Soviet Azerbaijan. So that's why the whole war of Artsakh started, and we won that war. We could have won even further, but traitors in our government again. The first president was a KGB Mossad agent, Levon Terpetros, and his wife's a Jew. That's no secret. And he basically prevented our army from going even further. And and what he didn't let Artsakh unite with Armenia. He decided to create a separate Republic of Artsakh. And this whole confusion and chaos, which led to the complete loss of Artsakh 4 years ago, was because of that stupid decision. We should have never done that. Armenia should have been reunited with Armenia. Anyways, this is a very long story, but I tried to say it as briefly as I could. But yeah, and what happened? He pretty much uh, you know put the wrong basis for everything. This led to the whole uh, you know compromise politics, and led to what Nikol Pashinyan did in 2020 to be a whole lot easier. If it wasn't for all those wrong decisions 30 years ago, he wouldn't be able to, completely backstab Armenia and hand over Artsakh to Azerbaijan like that. So, um, yeah, for us to really understand, my point is for us to really understand what's going on with Armenia right now and why they want the Zangezur corridor and why I say that this is a fight, Armenia's fight for survival at the gates of Europe. Because if we lose this fight for survival, then Azerbaijan will get their Zangezur corridor. They might get all of Sunik like they wanted 100 years ago. They're gonna connect it to Turkey. There's gonna be like a big pan-Turkish empire. When in Europe, there's going to be a lot of Muslims, and then it's going to be a whole pan-Islamic empire. So that's why I say it's like pretty much like the Thermopylae, the hot gates right now. And the only country that's actually supportive of us that doesn't want there to be a Zangezur corridor is Iran, because that will cut off Iran from its reliable neighbor, which is us. So I think right now, since Iran is on our side with regards to Sunni, they're the nation that can help us in this fight. They can maybe arm us. We could probably create an alliance. But see, 100 years ago, there wasn't the powerful Iran to help us in that fight, but now there is. And you know what happened in 2020 of this century, 4 years ago. Whatever they tried to do back 100 years ago in attacking Sunni, they would have done it this 2020 as well, even or 2021, doesn't matter. They didn't, because Iran, stepped up and said, no, you can't just do whatever you want right above my nose. But now what's happening with Iran and Israel, the war that they're fighting, and if U.S. gets involved and if Iran weakens, then that'll give Azerbaijan more of a confidence to attack again. So yeah, this war is far from over. It's not going to end until Armenia becomes victorious, or if Armenia ceases to exist as an independent country. That's it. I mean, and unfortunately, Russia's not our ally. It's always helped the Turks more than it's ever helped us, and because they don't, since they're an empire, since they have imperialistic ambitions, to them a mono-ethnic nationalist like state is an enemy. I mean, it's an enemy for any empire. It's an obstacle, so they don't want that. They see us as the main obstacle for them to dominate this region, because they look at this South Caucasus region as one entity. They don't look at it as three separate countries. To them, it's like one whole thing. So that's why they've always backstabbed us. That's why they've always sided with the Turks or the Azeris against our interests, because they don't want a strong, powerful Armenia. And unfortunately, a lot of our people still put a lot of hope in the Russians. They think the Russians are gonna, save us, or do this or do that. But again, as long as we have that mentality of someone thinking about, saving us, that guy's, delusional. So that's not gonna happen. So. Um, it's all about having the right mindset. That's what we're trying to work on. But yeah, I hope you guys got a better understanding of now what's going on and how this all relates to Armenia.
Oh, thank you, sir. I'm sure everybody appreciates. And I put some content up top. There's a listener here. This listener is um, Armenian centric and Armenian herself. And that's kind of I appreciate her account so much. She's just relentlessly posting healthy content about her people. So big shout out to you, Miss. Um, Colleen, you got a question for our guest?
Yeah, thanks, bro. uh, Host now it's good to hear you speak, bro. It's very interesting, a lot of knowledge. So I did enjoy listening to this space, but I had a question for you. Basically, whenever you're talking about Armenia, it's funny that I didn't hear you, and I'm not being controversial. I support Armenia 100% because they're Catholic country. That's what I am. My religion, so I support Armenia 100%. So Dutch is a very good friend of mine. So don't worry, I'm not going to be like being a troll or anything. Just had a genuine question for you, bro. Um, it's basically just like, see with the CSTO. I mean, for me personally, because I was behind Russia at the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, right? And then I was behind them a lot. But sort of something that put me away from Russia was, sorry, after the Nagorno-Karabakh wars, right? That Russia just they took a back step, and I was surprised about that. And it was even that Putin had actually asked Azerbaijan for a because there was riots in Azerbaijan a few years previous to this happening. Putin had said, "Can we borrow some of your troops?" And they said no because Putin had sent his troops to Azerbaijan after the whole uprising. So this happened shortly before the whole Karabakh incident occurred, and basically, I was just thinking, did you not feel betrayed? Because personally, looking in, I supported, obviously, always support Armenia 100%, 110% against the Turks a million times over, right? Because they're my brothers, as far as I'm concerned, religiously. But um, from just a geopolitical context, did you not feel betrayed by Russia whenever they sent the CSTO inspect? Because they were sort of saying, CSTO, this is Article 15 or Article 5 or whatever, no NATO. This is our equivalent, CSTO. So basically, did you not feel betrayed by that, or were you not upset? Because I was personally looking in from like a not a neutral point of view. Obviously, I had my views and I knew who I supported, but I was really fucking felt betrayed by that, and it put me off Russia 100% after that, to be honest, because I just thought, if they're going to help out Armenia whenever they're getting slaughtered, like and why are they not doing anything? Did you not? Can I have your answers, please?
Yeah, brother. I mean, I'm guessing you're Irish. I love the Irish, of course. There's actually a lot of historical, accounts of that. The people who inhabited Ireland first came from Armenia or something like that. We could talk about that later. But yeah, I've always liked the Irish as definitely a fighting people, and they definitely understand our fight for freedom because the against imperialism because they're doing the same against the British Empire. So yeah, that's a different topic too. But I mean, like I said, Russia's always pretty much. I can't think of a time that it didn't backstab us. Just like even just this previous century, was that what I just said about the Turkish-Russian alliance, the Kemalist Bolshevik alliance against Armenia. I know that the Bolshevik revolutions were 90% Jews or 80% Jews, but um, it doesn't matter. Even during the Tsarist times, again, they had a lot of anti-Armenian policies. To them, again, the whole problem is there being a strong Armenian state here because they don't want that. That's a problem for every imperialistic empire, so that they don't want that, and they backstabbed us again during the 90s whenever we could have gone forward, but Russia didn't want us to keep going forward and expanding our borders. They didn't want Armenia, our stuff to become a part of Armenia, so they decided to create this fake Artsakh Republic idea, which was made no sense a lot because people were protesting during those times for Artsakh to reunite with Armenia. They were getting out there to protest for Artsakh to become an independent state. You know, and again, it backs up this again in 2020. And it was organized. Uh, it was an organized war, man. It was like a script from day one to day, and the war today. This day is not it's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It's Azerbaijanis Flag Day. They made like a movie script. And I always tell people this is like the most conspiratorial war that's ever happened in modern history, where it was nothing but like scripted. And Russia was all in on it. They were like one of the architects of it, if not the top architect. If we take into account Zionism and everything, because all our generals, they all went to the Russian academies. They, um, first and foremost, I believe they served Russian interests. You know, a lot of betrayal took on and took place during those times. And I'm certain that if we write a book about exactly what happened during the 44-day war, it's going to be like 10-volume book, because there's going to be so much like treason involved. It's ridiculous. But that whole trilateral agreement that was signed on November 9th of 2020, 4 years ago, uh, it's a lot of it were things that Russia wanted. I mean, in the ninth point of that trilateral agreement, it says that there should be a Zangezur corridor. And, you know, it's obviously then that's what Russia wants as well, or else it wouldn't sign something like that. So why Russia wants the Zangezur corridor, the so-called Zangezur corridor. For those who don't know, it's basically it's going to be like some corridor that's going to link Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan, which is the you know, unfortunately it's theirs now. It's in the western part. It's going to be a corridor that's going to link those two together. And why they want that is because they can have direct land access to Turkey without the Black Sea, so they could you know, have a different route. To them, that's a very you know, strategic corridor, and it's going to have great implications for them. And yeah, that's why they keep pushing for that. You know, and they I feel like they're the ones who are using Azerbaijan as a tool. Again, if we also count in the Zionists, and these three are like collaborating with each other this whole 100 years. Turks, the Kremlin, and like the Zionists, they're all like collaborating with each other against you know, little Armenia for the past 100 years. You know, it's a very difficult situation that we are in. But yeah, just again, Russia, it doesn't have our interest in mind at all. Like they just use us as a, you know, as like a bargaining chip. Oh, okay. Just like what it did. Look what happened. 2020, it backstabbed us, right? It gave Azerbaijan what they wanted. It gave the Turks what they wanted, because look, the Turks were involved. Turkish generals were fighting in that war. They were the ones who were leading the Azerbaijan army. They had more experience, you know, and right after that war ended, right after Russia backstabbed us in that war, after we signed that trilateral agreement, and then the Russian peacekeepers came and they didn't do anything. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, people say, "Oh yeah, Nikol, of course, Nikol Pashinyan is a traitor." He's the one who later on said that he recognizes Artsakh as Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, and that's why the whole ethnic cleansing of Armenians took place last year. People saying, "Oh, well, what can Russia do? You know, that's Nikol's fault. He didn't recognize." I mean, yeah, but you have to remember that Nikol Pashinyan, he was placed into power by, you know, by Russia. I mean, yeah, the West supported it as well. Again, I'm not saying, of course, the West wanted this as well. They wanted this whole conflict to end, and to them, they rather have Azerbaijan win, because they have a lot of interests. They have a lot of, you know, investments, like I said, in the Baku with the oil and everything. So I'm not, you know, excusing what the West did, what you know, Britain did, England did, because their interests were involved here as well. And basically, they all wanted us to lose the war. Basically, that's unfortunately that's what took place. And right when he signed that trilateral agreement in 2020, what happens 2 years later? The Ukraine war starts. Then like was it 1 year and like 4 months later, the war in Ukraine starts. He wanted to basically, you know, have this position here settled. He wanted the whole Artsakh issue, Karabakh issue dealt with, so he won't have any problems here. Then he could face a war in Eastern Europe. So he basically just, you know, for lack of a better term, he screwed us over. So he gave the Turks what they wanted, so they won't, you know, cause Russia any problems over here. While he gets to fight Ukraine in the east. I mean, in the west for them, yeah, in Eastern Europe. And yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of people are waking up. There was a lot of pro-Russian sentiment before the war, but now there's a lot of anti-Russian sentiment. I mean, for a long time, back when like when I lived in America in 2014, I thought Russia was, oh, Putin was fighting against globalism, against Zionism. Hello?
You cut off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you cut off. I didn't know if you were
Okay.
done. Oh, real quick
Uh,
question for you.
yeah, I don't know what I said last when I got cut off because I think I was still talking. Yeah, like I think I got disconnected.
Yeah, X can be glitchy. A quick question for you. As your group, um, how much of your lands are you advocating for? There was the Armenian Empire, which was for that region sizable. And your nation has been, many parts have been stripped from your people. Do you have a stance on that? Have you discussed or contemplated how much of your lands would you wish to have back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, look, what happened again with the independence that we got that we regained in 1991? The problem with that independence was instead of becoming the successor of the First Republic of Armenia, which was established in 1918, they created like this fake Third Republic, which is ridiculous because they considered the Soviet occupation of Armenia that took place from 1920 to 1991. They considered that a second republic, but it was really an occupation. And again, I feel like that was another, Russian ploy, a KGB ploy to, you know, not let us become the successor of the First Republic. Because if we look at the First Republic map of Armenia included Artsakh and included Nakhichevan. It included parts of Western Armenia up until Kars. And this map was recognized internationally by the League of Nations in 1920. So if we became the successor of the First Republic, that would have been like our official map. It was something maybe I think around, if I'm not mistaken, um, I think maybe like 50, 60,000 square kilometers. I could be wrong about this. I don't know the exact number, but basically it was those regions all together united. And then what happened in 1920 again was the Treaty of Sevres that took place in it was an agreement. It was basically the Treaty of Sevres was um, what the Treaty of Versailles was to Germany, but the Treaty of Sevres was to Turkey. And basically, the British, since they were against the Russian Empire, they wanted to put a roadblock to the Russian Empire. They said, look, we'll recognize this Western Armenia as part of like a greater Armenia. We'll give you weapons. Well, you could fight against the Turks. If you win the war, you'll have that recognition. And we could have won that war against the Kemalists if the Bolsheviks didn't finance Ataturk, who was the leader of the Kemal movement. But even the government of Turkey recognized the Treaty of Sevres. And yeah, if the Bolsheviks didn't fund Ataturk, we could have won that war. And right now, huge sections of Western Armenia could have been part of. Um, Armenia today. Obviously, we're not going to say, we want the Tigran the Great Armenia back. That was like an empire. But what pertains to like Artsakh and Nakhichevan and parts of the Western Armenia altogether, if you look at that, it's called the Wilsonian Armenia. He drew that map. It's very reasonable. It had access to the Black Sea. Um, but again, the West was playing politics. They were pushing their interests against the Russians. That's why they um, decided to help us. And that was actually one of the few times that Britain actually helped us. Was during that time, and they actually gave us weapons. They gave us, uniforms to fight the Turks. But a lot of times, yeah, they did screw us over, like the Russians did, and even the French did as well. But this was actually the one time that they did actually try to help us out. But yeah, the Bolsheviks intervened. It's crazy how even the Turkish government at that time they accepted though that map. They accepted that part of today's Eastern Turkey to be Western Armenia, but it was the Bolshevik government that intervened and said, no, 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 this is impossible, and they started, uh, helping Ataturk. But there was a deal made. Ataturk, the leader of the Kemalists, he made a deal with the Bolsheviks. He said, "Look, since Azerbaijan is our little brother, so Azerbaijan, by the way, was created in 1918. It was never there's never been a historic account of a country called Azerbaijan before 1918. So Coca-Cola has a longer history than Azerbaijan. But since he said that, oh, since Azerbaijan is my little brother, I'll give Azerbaijan as part of the Soviet Union, but you give me weapons and gold so I could fight against the Armenians on this front. And that's what they did. That's what the whole Lenin Kemal Brotherhood Pact in 1920. That was like the whole basis of it. Like they just created that brotherhood. They allied with each other against our interests, and they decided how they're going to divide up Armenia. And the third, that's why I hate that concept of a third republic, because when we say that third republic, and we're basically acknowledging their illegal occupation and their illegal assault on Armenia, basically. And that's why when we come to power, we're gonna reinstate like Armenia to be the successor of the first republic, and yeah, and those are the borders that we should try to get back. And it's very feasible. If, if we didn't have, unfortunately, if Russia was actually an ally, we could have already had that map a long time ago. But I mean, we never know. I mean, look, our people were facing a genocide. We did face a genocide in 1915, but look, 3 years later, we had an independent state. So things change. We don't know what's gonna happen with Turkey. We don't know what's gonna happen with this whole world. We know some crazy things are going to go down, and we just have to be ready to, take advantage of the situation and, get back what's ours. Let there be justice again.
Well, if I had my choice, I'd wipe Turkey off the face of the map, and I'd give you guys back all your land. Zorro, my
Oh,
friend,
thanks, man.
go.
Yes, Sir Ludwig. As always, sir. I'm humbled, much appreciated, and God bless you for having me up, Sir Ludwig. My dear Duchess, thank you for inviting me up. And to all our dear friends, thank you for coming and listening and supporting this great man, our brother Hayk, who I remembered from the last interview. I actually have seen your podcast or interviews with Patrick Lancaster, and I think it was Redacted News during the times of the war, brother. So thank you for that, and God bless you. I remember my
Thank you, brother.
Ahampayman Achberes, Astված Opnikes, Mera Hayazgin. um, I remember the last question I asked you, brother, was about the cultural climate in our fatherland, and now it's kind of coming to the point where, like, me too, born and raised in California. Um, so it's so hilarious. Duchess hosted your last interview here, and you you have your master's degree in physics, and I'm completing my master's in chemistry to become a professor. And she had a German chemist on the following day after your interview, and I'm like, wait, so we had a physics professor, and now we have a chemist on, and I'm caught in between. I thought this was so awesome, and I went around last Sunday in my town here shooting the Armenian monuments. So, to my friends, if you're interested, you could go to my profile in the media tab and you could scroll down under my son's breakfast, his eggs with the lavash, and the In N Out burgers. You can scroll further down past those and you'll see the Armenian monuments that I took pictures of. We have the David of Sassoon. We have the Solomon Teledian, which is one of the heroes that executed Talat Pasha, and we also have a couple monuments in the cemetery separate from that, and Old Armenia Town, which Kirk Kerkorian was local to the Central Valley. And it brings a question to mind, brother Hike. Growing up here in California, only watching the state media from Armenia, obviously being a controlled opposition from the Russian side, from the Jewish side, as we all know, they control all sides of the narrative, which is the most unfortunate thing for us. But thank God for our intuition and our wisdom because we know not to take everything they say as truth. Now, what I had seen, which is probably what you had seen, is oh my gosh, the people are so unhappy, or oh my gosh, the people love the powers that are in charge right now. And even myself, when 2018 came along with the Velvet Revolution, so called, even I was excited. Oh, wow, there's hope for our country. There's this, there's that. But then what do you know what happens? It was all a big ruse. And my friends here have heard me say, like, how evil, how sinister of a organization are these people that they almost had us basically cheering on our own destruction without us even realizing it. And now that we're here, my question to you, brother, is you kind of touched on it, but where do you see the political climate now in the country? How much hope do you see in the people? Because just as you touched on, and as Sir Ludwig always says, I agree that our hope is in the people. And we have our history in the 90s and even before that as proof. Hayk Nazaryan, the volunteer, folks. If you ever hear that phrase, Nazaryan, it means the volunteer, which is more akin to the patriot, the true patriot, which men just like Monte Tellurian, again local to where I live, left everything he had here, went to fight in the war, destroyed these disgusting bastards. The White Bear contingent, also local to the Central Valley, left everything, went and destroyed these disgusting bastards. They know they can't face a man head to head, so they always got to revert to these evil, subversive tactics of trying to get you and stab you in the back. So thank God for our people, our culture, because that courage is there, brother. I'll reiterate the question because I kind of went off on a little diatribe. Where do you see the hope in the people and the political climate in our country as it stands today? God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the support. Yeah, we could talk. I was meaning to message you so we could talk privately, get to know each other. We seem to be on the same page. I'll definitely message you after this space talk. Yeah, like I said, this whole situation here, a lot of people are hopeless. They're disappointed. They're living like ostriches. It's because the past 30 years, all these political parties they've done nothing but lie and deceive people, and especially with the velvet so-called velvet revolution that took place in 2018, that really destroyed people's hopes, and because they had a lot of uh, positive accounts. They really thought that Nikol Pashinyan was going to do something positive for the country, but when they saw that he was just another traitor, he was just another con man, they just gave up, and now it's very hard. It's very hard right now to try to recruit people for a political cause because they don't believe in anyone anymore. They don't like anybody, and especially after the war, and even after the war, this whole fake opposition that we have in Armenia right now, it's ridiculous. They're it's just like they're playing tug of war, but they're basically the opposite sides of the same coin. They're not, for example, like this whole no what we're talking about today with the whole signing of the trilateral agreement. Obviously, the today's government, Nikol Pashin, he signed it and he's all for it. And for to us, to any true like patriot, any true nationalist, that's a treasonous freaking agreement. That should completely be obliterated. That shouldn't even be a question. That wasn't something that we willingly signed or we fairly lost the war. We were completely backstabbed, and then that should completely be torn apart. But even the opposition today, they're for it as well. So, and to them, their whole that's the crazy thing. If you pay attention to the opposition here, every time they go talk about how Nikol, he's a traitor, their whole complaint is not about Nikol Pashinyan losing the war or betraying us in the war. Their whole complaint, yeah, they say betrayal, but they say betrayal in a different way. They mean it in a different way. Their whole complaint is that why didn't Nikol Pashinyan sign the armistice sooner? If you go look it up, go look at all their whole complaint. Their main complaint is that why didn't Nikol Pashinyan sign the armistice sooner? Why didn't he surrender sooner? No one ever says. I'm talking about like the mainstream opposition, Robert Kocharian, Sarah Starks, and all those people, all the people in like the parliament and the National Assembly today. Not one of them I've heard say that I didn't hear anyone like complain of why didn't Nikol Pashinyan fight till the end? Why did he surrender? Instead, they complained of why didn't he surrender sooner? They never complain about like why didn't he, you know, win the war? Why didn't he do everything to win the war? No one ever brings that up, as if like winning the war is out of the question. But it's ridiculous. If we were able to win the war 30 years ago when we didn't even have an army, when we were just fighting as freedom fighters, and you know the whole land was mostly, not mostly, but a lot of it was occupied by Azerbaijan, and we were able to liberate it. Why couldn't we maintain what we had in this war? And when we did have like a legit army, so it just makes no sense, you know, this whole opposition here, and what they've done is even made people feel more hopeless, more disappointed, and they just keep on changing masks. They keep on bringing these different type of figureheads, like the last person we saw with that priest who was trying to come to power, and I feel like they're just uh, misleading the decent portion of the population that's against this government today. The same thing exactly with what's going on everywhere else. I mean, if you look at what Trump's doing, a lot of people saying, yeah, Trump is better, lesser of two evils. Even like the red pill people, they're supporting Trump because they're saying he's the lesser of two evils. But I feel like those types of people are a bigger threat. Like people like Trump or people like Maloney or people in Italy, people like Le Pen in France or like the AFD party. I don't know who their leader is in Germany. I feel like they're doing a bigger harm because they're misleading the decent population. I mean, obviously, who's going to support Kamala Harris? Only degenerates are going to support her, right? That's pretty obvious. Or who's going to support Macron in France? Only like dumbass French people will. The decent people won't. But the opposition comes, the fake opposition comes, and it misleads the true patriots. It misleads the decent people, and they do a bigger harm that way. Now, same thing in Armenia. Same thing is happening with Armenia. This opposition here, this fake opposition. They keep misleading those people. They keep making them feel more hopeless. They keep making them get more disappointed. And yeah, that just needs to end. People just need to understand that they're all pretty much serving the same system. And the only way to solve this issue is for a movement like ours that's completely outside of the system to come in, to penetrate inside the political atmosphere and take over. That's the only way that's going to happen. You know, there's no other way around it. And unfortunately, again, people won't come to that realization until like there's a great economic collapse, and I feel like it's gonna come, and I believe it's gonna be global again. I think it's gonna be worse than what happened 100 years ago in 1929. So it's gonna be global, and once people you know, face those hardships, those economic hardships. Once they open their wallet and see there's nothing there, once they open their fridge and see that there's no beer there, and then they're gonna, you know, try to do something about it. And that's when people are gonna resort to extremes, as if you know, as if they call it, you know. And that's where movements like ours that are considered fringe right now, they're going to become mainstream during those times. So, but we shouldn't just sit on our hands and just wait for that. Obviously, we're trying to prepare ourselves for that. We're trying to get more organized. We're trying to recruit more people. We're trying to get more, you know, solid foundation. So when that time comes, we'll be ready for it, and we'll be able to take the movement on to the next level.
Zara, you just brought up something. It never dawned on me, and I had like an epiphany moment. You know,
Haha, okay.
there's always patterns, Zora, and you just pointed out a very interesting pattern. Duchess has been interviewing a lot of chemists and engineers. I think Duchess might be up to something. You know, with chemists and engineers, you know, it'd be very easy to make some gas chambers. Just saying. I think you just snitched on her, Zora.
We need Walter White, man. We need Walter White on here for that.
Duchess has got this like mad plan to create this community that I think we're all just the first phase of her plan. We're gonna have to change her nickname into the Armenian Assassin. Zora, you got a follow up for the guest?
Sir Ludwig, that couldn't have come at a more perfect time because there was my question ended up being a little bit more long-winded than I wanted, sir. So I had a comment I wanted to add to exactly what our brother Hike said, and you just perfectly segued right into it, sir, and set me up because when you talk about patterns, why is this little country of Armenia so important, sir? This tiny little speck of land in the middle of nowhere, landlocked, this country, a Christian country with Muslim neighbors all around. Well, there's a religious aspect to it. I always point out that a quarter of Jerusalem belongs to Armenia, which I don't have a concise explanation as to how that's even possible, which is an incredible importance when it comes to religion because not only is Armenia Christian, but it's a separate quarter of the entire city that's Armenian, not just Christian, but Armenian, and it has the actual Armenian flag on it. And that is a huge significance as to Armenia's importance to the region. Now, on top of that, the other patterns, as you said, Sir Ludwig, whatever happens on a global scale, for some reason, seems to always start with Armenia first. Let's go back 100 years, like Heike is saying. You have before World War One, you have the Sultan Hamidian massacres by Sultan Hamid in the 1890s, which led up to the Armenian genocide in 1915, leading up to World War One. Then we have the Spanish flu that happens in 1914 as well, a worldwide pandemic, so called. Folks, what happened in 2020? We had a so called worldwide pandemic again. We have a war breaking out in Armenia, and lands are given away once again, and it also started again with Armenia. Then we moved into the Ukraine war with Russia. And there seems to be those patterns always repeating. But apart from that, it's not trying to toot our own horn. Thank God for our great group of people we have here because we stand against all injustice, not just from our side, but how lovely it is that we can all speak from our cultures because we see it firsthand. And to point out just that it's not just Armenia, it's everyone, but we can kind of see the spider as it's weaving its web and how it's bringing everybody into this. So I really appreciate that comment, Sir Lou, because I did forget, and you brought it right back in there, and I wanted to add that to our brother Hike. And my friends, this thing that happened 2 days ago in Amsterdam with the supposed Jews, they threw out this word called pogrom. Now, I'm trying not to get too upset and angry here, but that word pogrom was first used in the 1989 pogroms of Sumgait, which is where that Artsakh war started when the Armenians in Azerbaijan's territory were starting to get massacred. And guess what? It was called a pogrom. And that's where the people wanted their independence from Azerbaijan. They did all the referendums diplomatically through democracy. Azerbaijan didn't have it. And guess what? The Armenians said no. They started kicking ass. And unfortunately, we have the situation we have now today. But don't let anyone fool you, folks. They're trying to use language against us. They're using everything against us. But as it remains, anyone who stands for truth, as I say, the truth will always lead us to the answer. And that was the comment that Sir Ludwig. Thank you very much for bringing to my mind again, sir. And as always, God bless you and thank you to our brother Hike.
You mean 1889, right? Not 1989.
Yeah, yeah, he misspoke. Yeast, for anybody that doesn't know, Yeast is a proud member of his Jewish community. Yeast, it seems like your people have um, this issue with the Armenian people historically. It seems like a lot of the hardships the Armenians have faced, your people seem to be in the mix of it. As a proud super Jew, um, do you have an opinion on this? Am I off base to say that it seems like a lot of the hardships the Armenians have suffered in the last few hundred years, that your people seem to be, at the very least, be in the mix of it? And do you know of any reason why this is?
I don't. I don't even think people that I know would know about it. I do believe Jewish people are behind it. I mean, the Domeh, and I do believe. First of all, it's in front of everyone's face. If you go on Wikipedia, you look at the Young Turks, you'll see they're from Jewish descent. All of them. They don't even hide it. They don't even hide it at Turtuk and the other people. Some people were hidden from what was happening. and they made it look like it was Turks that were doing it, meaning Turkish people. But they were Turkish collaborators. There's no question, meaning like Quislings. But it was definitely yeah.
Well, how about currently? Is it not true from my research that the state of Israel has been very supportive of Azerbaijan in their treatment of the Armenians?
Oh, I have no idea. No idea. Meaning, who's Azerbaijan? I can't pronounce that name. What's he the president of? I'm not trolling.
Well, no, that's a country. It's a fictitious country, but country nonetheless, right next to Armenia. And they just took a bunch of land from the Armenians. It wasn't even a war because Armenians just, they're such a small people, and they just don't want to, they're not interested in war, and they're not outfitted for war at this point in time. And the Azerbaijanis just muscled their way in and took a large section of Armenia, and
Yeah, but they couldn't have done that without the. So sorry to cut you off. They couldn't have done that without again like the internal backstabbing. We had more than enough might and willpower to do a solid resistance, but yeah, they
No, this
didn't.
has been rinse and repeat.
The traitors, yeah, they backstabbed us. I'm telling you, there's so much to even. We could just do a whole separate space talk on about how that treason even took place and.
right,
Yeah,
and the
basically.
Jews are at the forefront even of the subversion of your own government, as they do with all governments. But the state of Israel even supplied weapons to Azerbaijan, and the state of Israel gives political and international cover to Azerbaijan. You've seen the media did no play on it whatsoever, and what little there was, it was tilted in favor of Azerbaijan. Um, Yees, do you have any opinion on all of that?
Yeah, I believe it's rinse and repeat. Listen, they've been fooling. I've read a lot. I've spoken in the space about the Armenian genocide, and I'm talking about like pamphlets from back then because they were denying it, and it was unbelievable to me how they were able to hide it from your average citizen in America and Germany and Britain. People just didn't know about it. I mean, the general population, more than the general population, very people didn't believe anybody that reported back. The Christian, let's say there was a Christian American on a mission or whatever, meaning they go to these, I forgot what it's called. They have schools there, and he wrote a pamphlet, like a 50-page pamphlet, and in 1895 they just let them build up, build up. I think it has to do with jealousy, honestly, because I think Armenians are very they're also movers and shakers, doers. Not in a not in a chicanery way. In an actual they build up. They what they were building up in Turkey in the Ottoman Empire was unbelievable. From what I read, from what it was described, they were like really advanced and they were just tricked into being genocided. It's to me, it's unreal. It's sad. Like you have these stories how they put them in a gym and just slaughter them all. A lot of it was trickery. And as in regards to traitors from the inside, yes, that's all governments. But back then, I don't think there were as many. I don't think they really needed that many because they just basically they did a different trickery. The Armenians voted for the Young Turks. They were happy. They welcomed because it's a war of attrition, and then you slaughter them. Like the Young Turks made it sound like, yeah, we're going to democratize. We're going to get the Sultan. We're going to get the. Yeah, listen, I believe the Dome was already in the Sultan's seat for years before, without anyone realizing, in my opinion.
Well, that's good. That's interesting that being a Jew and you acknowledge that fact. So props to you. Hey, you sound kind of like Bobby Fischer. It's pretty interesting. Hey, I don't know. Do you know who Bobby Fischer is?
Yeah, I know about Fisher. I mean, they
Yeah,
lived his
yeah,
life, but
yeah. No, you sound very similar if you listen to his
Yeah,
interviews.
I don't think I would. I'm not a Bobby Fischer because I don't think I would talk if I was in Bobby Fischer's position because I don't want to die. Meaning I could go to Israel and be. I don't. I hope. I don't think the feds care about me. I don't have a podcast or anything.
Yeah, just to
But what do you think about Bobby Fischer, though? Just curious.
I think he was thinking out loud, asking questions out loud, breaking programming, and they just made him
Yeah,
nuts.
he was a good man. Yeah, he was a good man.
I don't think they destroyed his life, but I don't think they. Yeah, he was a good man. He was just again asking questions out loud without realizing what's happening.
and just to clarify from my
Important questions.
just to clarify from my interactions with Yeast, um, people that know me know I don't trust any Jews. I don't like any Jews. Yeast is loyal to his people. He's not a he's as far as being a traitor to your own. Yeast is not. But and I even gave you credit last night, Yeast. I brought you up. Yeast will say truths, unemotionally. You know, not one way, more academically. It's not good or bad. He's not ripping on his own. He's just like, look, I researched history. The Young Turks were predominantly, if not all, Jewish, and they pulled off some shit. And so he'll state that stuff. It doesn't mean that he's on our side. It doesn't mean that he's trying to ingratiate himself or trying to be a good Jew. He's loyal to his tribe. He loves his people. He is what he is. He can't do nothing about that. So just to clarify for everybody, I found used to he will be an honest broker in dialogue, more times than not. So I'll give him credit for that. But don't anybody make the mistake. He is loyal to his tribe. But you can have civil discourse with yeast more than probably almost any other Jew on this damn app. Fuck you, yeast.
Yeah, that's cool.
Fuck you, yeast. I still hate you.
I hate you too. I don't
I
know if I can
told
hear
you,
his.
since you're an honest broker, you'll be the last one on the train.
And I told you, Ludwig, if all the Jews go on a train, I'm going with them. What do I have to live for?
Anyways, I will be ending this broadcast here. I got some things to take care of. As always, I go through the panel. And everybody direct your comments or questions if you have any for the guest speaker. And real quick, I just want to thank you, sir, for taking the time. So I'll start at the bottom and work my way
No,
up. Ron, do you have any questions for the guest speaker or any comments towards him? All right, Ron's asleep. Who do we got? Napoleon? Napoleonic. Napoleonic, any comments or questions you'd like to make at this time?
Excuse me, you caught me in the middle eating. Um, First off, there were some things you said a while ago, Ludwig, and I can't, you said so much, but you were saying about not latching on to National Socialism, and you said some other things with that, and I'm 110% in agreement with that. The I, I love learning, and this Armenian situation is sounding very, very, very important, in more ways than one. And I am just sitting, listening, and trying to take in as much information, because this is a unity thing that we're trying to accomplish here. Because that's the one thing with all the war, megalomaniac, war peddlers and misery peddlers. Their aim is to foment so much division that nations cannot stand, and we need to fight back at that. I yield the mic.
Thank you. Great, good words. Zora, any final thoughts or comments?
Yes, thank you, Sir Ludwig. Just express my appreciation to you, sir, for always being a impartial speaker on all these topics and standing up for the truth and what can really help us as mankind. Appreciation to our dear Duchess, who goes out of her way to bring inspiring gentlemen just like Hayk to the forefront, and a very, very awesome topic because not speaking for my culture or for myself alone, my friends, I do see whatever happens in Armenia is soon to follow by the rest of the world. It's very interesting that that's the pattern that seems to be following. If we can all pay attention and help each other out just as fellow mankind, I think we serve to be in a much better position to aid each other and going forward, standing against all injustice, especially those that I hate the most, which is against innocent women and children. So my humble appreciation and gratitude to you all, and God bless everyone here and all my dear friends. Thank you. Hayk Can, Keziye Lastavats of.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah. Um, I guess everyone asked the question they wanted. I think I received this question. It says it on the top of the space. It says from Dr. Kevorkian's daughter, if you caused an international scandal, as you say you did, why does no one in Armenia know who you are? I don't know. It says it's replying to Sir Ludwig, but I can see the question. Is that something I should answer or I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
if you, of course, you're the guest speaker. If
Yeah.
you wish to address that, I didn't even say it up there in the nest, but yeah, if you wish to address that, you can.
Oh,
I think what they're referring to is early on in this discussion.
yeah. I
Yeah,
remember.
go right ahead.
Oh well, I don't think that's true. I mean, the people, especially involved in the political arena here, a lot of them, they know who we are already, um, even just through that, one incident. But I've been involved politically. I've been, writing different posts. I've been making different videos, etc., for like a couple of years now, at least. And yeah, a lot of people they found out about me whenever I moved to Armenia, and a lot of people in the diaspora they got inspired by that move. So I don't think that question is 100% true, but there was a scandal nevertheless. It went all around. But generally, I guess we could end it with this question. A lot of people, they've been asking me this lately. Okay, let's say, yeah, your movement, let's say it does come to powers, and we're against democracy. We're for like an authoritarian nationalist state. Okay, so if you guys do come to power, then what is the international like community going to think about that, etc. And that's for a long time actually I didn't know how to really answer that question, but it's a very simple answer. It's like asking someone, okay, what is he going to do whenever some thief goes into his house with a weapon and threatens to kill his family and him as well. And what is he gonna do? Is he gonna be scared to use the weapon that he has to kill the person that's invaded his home because he's afraid of what the judge is going to think, or is he just going to do what needs to be done to ensure the survival of his family? Uh, that's exactly the situation we're in. I mean, the whole purpose of us to create a nationalist authoritarian state is to preserve our statehood, to make sure that Armenia doesn't get completely disintegrated, to make sure that the fate of Armenia doesn't have the same fate as Artsakh did. And if we continue down this road, make no mistake about it, what happened with Artsakh was going to happen to all of Armenia. That's 100% fact. I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care what the international community is going to say to that. If we just sit on our hands and continue with this status quo, what we saw happen in Artsakh is going to happen to all of Armenia. But back what happened with Artsakh, they had a place to go. They came to Armenia, right? They came to the Armenian Republic. But what's going to happen whenever we suffer the same fate? Where are we going to go? We're not going to have a place to go. There's nowhere else to go. So I mean, we have to be willing to do everything. I mean, absolutely everything to make sure our fatherland and our statehood remains intact. To make sure that our future generations have a home to live in. I mean, we might have to. go to hell to do what needs to be done to make sure that is all possible. But if we could look up and see a prosperous, united, and greater Armenia for our future generations, then I mean, bring on the devil with his worst. I mean, what can I say? We just have to be willing to go all in on this fight. So it's not just a matter of like, oh, let's just do like a government change or some regime change for the sake of it. No, this is a war for survival, a war for life and death. This is what it's all about. I don't care what the international community is gonna think. If our statehood is on the line, if our survival is on the line, I could spit at their opinions. We have to do what needs to be done, and then we'll decide how to answer to the judge or to the international community in this case. But uh, that's the type of approach we need to have towards this. And the time is going to come whenever that's going to be a necessity, where people like us are going to be called upon to make those drastic decisions that is going to ensure the survival of our people, of our country.
Thank you for that. Harry, are any comments or questions directed for the guest speaker?
No, just wanted to thank for the time devoted to enlightening us on topics that are not very well hashed on normal media or newspapers or anything. I think a lot of people here had no idea about all these details, and if it was not for the you guys putting the time and making yourselves available and organizing these things, none of this would be of knowledge to us. So thank you a lot for all of that, all of the panelists and the guests. Very enlightening. Thank you, and all the best to Armenia.
Well,
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
it's all Duchess. You know, me, I'd rather be sitting on my couch watching football, but no, Duchess has got this honey to do list and this chore list, and she's the one always putting all this stuff together. So me, I'd be over there watching ping pong and stuff, but no, 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 no rest for the wicked. So Duchess gets all the credit. Colleen, any final thoughts? Calling the last time.
We're calling on you. He's probably in some Irish pub drinking
He's probably
a pint.
he's probably he's probably drowning his goldfish.
I
Yeast.
mean, if other people have any questions, they could always message me. Private message me. I'll be glad to answer. If they don't have the chance to ask it right now, they could ask me later. No problem.
Yeast. Any final thoughts?
No, thank you. I mean, I came at the tail end, so but I appreciate you. I'm gonna look into this. I didn't really even know much about the current event. Because it's very difficult. This is my opinion, and I'll just point to, for example, John Amory, who was hung in 1945. Anyone can look at him. John Amery. For example, when he was in Norway during the war, he was a Brit. He was able, I believe, what he said was that he was able to see through the propaganda because he was on neutral territory. When you're in the middle of the fog, it's hard to see. That's why it's very hard to analyze the present and understand the reasons. I mean, like they say, hindsight is 2020, especially when you're like emotionally. And I think that's actually how they tricked the Armenians, from what I read back in the day, because in the present you get the adrenaline. Again, a war of attrition. Like people, it's basically the dialect of problem, reaction, solution. That's why they voted for the Young Turks, in my opinion, because they were just desperate for anything. Like you said, the lesser of the two evils, right? They were just like they were willing to believe. They never wanted to believe that what ended up happening back in 1895 and 1915 was ever possible, because it sounds insane. Because it is insane. It was literally, it was, we talk about a school shooting. This was an entire people shooting, like an entire community shooting, more than a community, city, like, and people think that's also part of the slander. Like they were kind of third world and not as advanced. No, they were very first world at universities. They were very extremely civilized. But again, academically, I thank you, Ludwig, for holding the space. And again, I'll look into this more. But in my opinion, it's very difficult to analyze the present, especially when they throw everything at you. You have to look at it sober minded. I mean, the more emotional you get, the more they want you to get. And obviously there's a difference between passion and emotion. But and I'm not saying anyone here is emotional, but I'll stop spewing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the world's on fire. So, some of the what would be a smaller fire to you gets very little attention. Not you per se, but just as an individual. Um, Duchess, I'm going to give the guest a final say, but Duchess, anything you'd like to add at this time? And everybody, once again, Duchess deserves all the credit. She put this together. She's a big advocate for her people. She's a proud Armenian herself, and this is near and dear to her heart. So, and all these different types of broadcasts, Duchess does so much. She does her own interview stuff, which is top notch. I think one of the better interviewers on all of X Spaces. And then she does so much, even without me knowing. She doesn't ask for appreciation. She doesn't. Ludwig, I brought in, 50 people, or I spent, X amount of hours doing clips for you. She does so much, and she gets very little credit or acknowledgement or appreciation. You guys always thanking me. You guys should get in the habit of thanking Duchess as much, if not more. So to you, Duchess, I tip my hat to you, Miss. Duchess, final thoughts?
Oh, wow, Sir Ludwig. I'm blushing, very humbled. Thank you. Um, I actually should be thanking you. You've mentored me, taught me so much. And when I first joined Twitter 2 years ago, I went to several spaces and nobody spoke about the plight of our people, the Armenian people. But then I found Sir Ludwig and I was amazed how much he knew about Armenian history. He just shocked me, even did spaces about the Armenian issues. And this is before I started co-hosting for him or even speaking much in his spaces. So I appreciate you, Sir Ludwig, because you speak on all people's um, difficulties, not just the Germans. You speak for the Ukrainians, you speak for the Armenians, you speak for the Libyans, and on and on and on. So I admire that about you. You say Hitler is a humanitarian. I would put you on the same category. And of course, I want to thank Hayk. I appreciate you for trying to wake up the Armenian revolutionary spirit. You are absolutely correct. It's something we need to awaken. I appreciate you so much for putting yourself on the front lines with all the dangers that it comes with. It takes such bravery. I will forever be grateful to you. I appreciate you. Thank you. And I am almost certain all the Armenians in the space are feeling what I'm feeling. Gratitude, respect, and love. And for the listeners, thank you so much for joining, especially my Armenian brothers and sisters. And if you guys can go to Hike's Hosang's page, there is a link, especially if you're Armenian, please join for the membership. I personally joined it 2 weeks ago, I believe, or 3 weeks ago, right, Hike? It's only $5 a month. It's not much for me, but I know it does so much for Armenia. I'm sorry, I'm a little sick with my voice, so I'm gonna end it here. Thank you.
Yeah, Thank you, Sir Ludwig, for hosting this. And yeah, thank you so much, Duchess. You guys are doing a good work, a lot of good work for spreading the truth. And I'm glad I met Duchess by accident, actually, on my previous Twitter account that got closed right after I met her. So it was fate that at least I got to meet her before it closed down, or else I would have probably not have met her. And we started the first space talk right after I created my second account, which is this one. So I don't think that was a coincidence. I guess it was a reason for us to, meet. And I think the time is coming for people like us, not just Armenians, just people like us to, get united for the same fight that we're fighting for, the fight for truth, fight for justice. And I thought it was important for a lot of non-Armenians, and even Armenians. A lot of Armenians still don't know what's going on in this region or what's this whole conflict even about. And so, if Armenians don't know about it, obviously, non-Armenians aren't going to know much about it either. Not everyone is intelligent like Ludwig to know Armenian history. A lot of Armenians, unfortunately, don't. So yeah, this was important for us to, talk about this topic, talk about this the war that's going on, because if we look at what happened in this last 4 years, right after this Artsakh war, this last one, where we got backstabbed and Artsakh became part of Azerbaijan. Right after that, what happened? The war in Ukraine started, and then the war in Gaza started, and now it's just we're on the brink of another like third world war. So it might seem small, it might seem like a small territory, but it actually has big, domino effect on all the other regions nearby. So, anyways, my point is that we need to know these things. We need to be more involved. I know our people have become disappointed, have become hopeless. With politics, but that's no excuse. We need to accept personal responsibility. We need to, I keep saying this over and over, decent people need to get involved in politics, because if we don't get involved in politics, then the scoundrels are going to get involved, and they're going to keep stabbing our nation in the back over and over and over again until we have no nation left. So, that's why it's important for us to get political. It's important for movements like ours to grow. And yeah, if you guys are interested, Armenians or non-Armenians, you could go to the website, go to the Telegram channel. If you guys could go join the Telegram channel, that's the only place where I pretty much don't get banned or blocked. And the website, you could sign up like for the membership. If you would like to donate, go ahead. But if you actually agree with what we're doing, then think about donating or becoming a member. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and send me a direct message, or you can message me on the Telegram. There's all the contact information is on the website. So feel free. And thanks again for everybody for all the questions. It was a honor to be on. Thanks again. I hope
Uh,
you guys have a good day.
well, thank you for taking the time to speak on this issue. And as Duchess says, I can respect and appreciate somebody that's a fighter and advocate for their people. And Yeast dropped out. I was going to tell him, see, Yeast, for the price of one bagel a month, he could support humanitarian Armenia. Um, but just to speak real quick, and I asked Yeast that question, why is it there seems to be this, the Jews have this issue with the Armenians, and there's reason behind this. Now he may not know, not everybody knows everything, um, but the Armenian people, I mean, they are one of the most resilient people. They've been occupied, tormented for well over 1,000 years, and it just doesn't stop. And there's a specific reason for this. And the fact that they're still here, they're still a community, they kept their Christianity, they kept their culture through all of that is just remarkable in itself. Um, this is much bigger than people think or realize. There's much more to this than most people realize. This is a very important part, not only of that region, but of the world itself. It's centrally located between Arabia, Asia, um, and Europe even. And a lot of people don't know the Armenians were the first Christian nation. You know, before Rome, Armenia pretty much had Christianity as the state religion. So they could actually make the claim of being the first Christian nation, and they have not wavered, not one iota, over 1,000 years of Muslim rule. It would have just been easier for them just to convert and be done with it. And for those, there's many, when I first started doing spaces on this, there was many who was like, what the hell, Armenians aren't even European. Yes, Armenians are Aryan. They're the remnants of some of the earliest of the Armenian civilization. Um, they've endured. And are there Armenians that are maybe mixed because of over 1,000 years of occupation? Of course. And there's Armenians that are still have immense amount of the ancient genetics, such as a Miss Duchess. And I can only speak on her as her as an example because I know enough to make that statement. So for any Europeans that feel that the Armenians are not European or Aryan, are kin, you're mistaken. And you know, if you were to try to even make that claim, well, they've been mixed. It's a percentage, but then you might as well get rid of the Italians, the Greeks, and so many others. The Spaniards, you might as well just cut them loose. So for Europeans to not think the plight of the Armenians is not our plight, of course it is. Family and kin first. I don't care where they are in the world. That whole region used to be just all Aryan, including Turkey and everything else. And Armenians are the remnants of what used to be. And the Jews know this. And throughout all, the Jews have always tried to conquer Europe. They tried to use the Mongols, they tried to use the Persians, they tried to use the Muzzies, the Arabs. They've tried to use everybody. And Armenia, time and time again, along with the Hungarians and the Romanians, and the Poles and the Germans and the Italians, have been the gatekeepers. Even the Slavics, they've been the gatekeepers, keeping the hordes of the world away from our people. The Scandinavians and all the rest would have fell so long ago if it wasn't for France, Italy, Hungary, Armenia, Germany, Poland, even Russia itself, back when Russia was free. Um, so not only do we have a duty and responsibility, we have an ancient um, oath to our kin, our folk, our people. And those that have suffered and paid the price dearly, and those that have endured and through the torment, they of all deserve so much more. The Armenians is like a lighthouse in the sea. They're surrounded by Muzzies. They're surrounded by Jews. And they weather the storm. And it's a true testament to our people, our Aryan people. In many respects, in many cases, in many times, they are the best of us. The lighthouse in this storm. As the waves just keep
That's a good way to put it.
as the waves just keep crashing upon them. A lot of people do not know the remarkable history of Armenia, the Armenian people, the hordes that they fought off time and time again. They weren't expansionists. They weren't trying to convert and take over. They stood there at the gates. They stood at the wall, century after century. watching their sons and their fathers die and their women being harmed. And they hold no animosity for us, but so many of our kin have forgotten. Remembered Armenia. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, brother. That's a good no, that's a good conclusion to this space talk. Appreciate it.
No, once again, I appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you the best in your endeavors and for your peoples. As I stated, if it was up to me, the greater Armenian Empire would be reinstituted. And for those that are Christian, these are some of the best of you. How dare you not be supportive just because the church isn't, and the church has turned their back? As a Christian, make the church care. Talk to your preachers. Ask them what the hell they're doing, pun intended. As a Christian, you Christians got to start sticking together. And Armenia's at the gates. It's much better to support, and the Armenians just want support. They don't want you to do it for them. They'll do it for themselves, and in the process of saving themselves, they'll save you. Your eternal souls depend on it. Uh,
Thank you, brother. Wise words.
Thank you, Sir Ludwig. You know I'm gonna be clipping this one. I appreciate everything, and this one definitely deserves a clip. And I'm looking for a beautiful Armenian tune that will go with Sir Ludwig's mic up that he just did. So, my Armenian brothers and sisters, please DM me some options. I would really appreciate it.
I'm working hard on that honorary Armenian citizenship.
You'll be getting one,
Oh,
like,
I told you about the asylum. The deal is still on.
No, I appreciate it. I really do. And I appreciate, Duchess, and you taking the time speaking on this. So, great. You did great. You informed us on so much nuances and details. I think you inspired and sparked people's inquisitive nature to do some researching for themselves. Sir, before I end this space, do you do spaces? Have you been doing spaces? Is there something upcoming? Is there any major thing upcoming that you would like people to be aware of? Any talks or podcasts or something to that effect?
Unfortunately, this X the account that I made, this recent one, it's only like less than a month old, and I think if I make a space talk, not many people will join because now I don't have a lot of followers right now on this new account. But I do go live on Telegram, and I basically do the same thing what you guys are doing right now. So that's why I was telling people, whoever's interested in the movement and what I'm doing, they could follow the Telegram channel. Just same, spelled the same way, just Hosang. By the way, for those who don't know, explained this last time. Hosang means current, which means like a movement in a single direction, a unity. That's why I just chose a name like that. So, it could be easy to remember, easy to pronounce for everybody. But anyways, yeah, I talk on Telegram, probably once a week. Um, yeah, that's the only place where there's a lot of engagement because I haven't been blocked or banned on there. I've been banned on blocked on all the other social media accounts. So that's what's been holding us back from growing even faster. But obstacles don't exist to be surrendered to. They're there to be broken and obliterated, just like the great one said. And so that's not gonna stop us from continuing to push forward.
Thank you, sir. There's a new speaker that came up that just always does this. I'm like, yeah, I'm closing out. And now all of a sudden she brings up 20 people. Garrick, is there something you wanted to add real quick before I close out?
No, I came late, and so I didn't really hear everything, but I loved the title. I'm Armenian. Um, yeah, I really love the title. The idea that a strong Armenia is a strong Europe uh, makes a lot of sense to me. you had Rome, you had Greece, and you had Persia fighting for a long time, and Armenia was mostly strong. And then, once the Turks came, well, the Muslims, then the Turks came, Armenia kind of weakened, and the rest is history. So I think strong Armenia, strong Europe, and yeah, look forward to listening more. And you made my wife cry.
Absolutely.
Well,
On with I actually teared up as well, so your wife isn't the only one. And say hello to her from us. Hopefully she can join as well next time.
and the space is recorded, and especially you being Armenian, I highly recommend you listen to it. Our guest speaker did a remarkable job. I've never met an Armenian that I didn't like. I've never met an Armenian that did not carry themselves in such a mature, cultured, civil manner. Polite, but yet strong. I've never met an Armenian that did not exhibit those characteristics. The honor's all mine.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate those nice words. Well, I think this is a good way to end it. If there's any, like I said, if there's any further questions, go feel free to message me, private DM me, and I'll answer it. But yeah, thanks again. We can make this an ongoing thing. We can make a part two, part three. Nothing stopping us from doing that. So because this is a big topic. This isn't something that can be discussed in just one space talk. If other people are interested, Duchess will let me know, and we'll do another round. We could kind of make it a series type of thing.